Let's look at some NFL draft quickly, Colin. Fernando Mendoza, presumptive #1 pick, less than 4 weeks away from the draft. And according to Daniel Jeremiah, Mendoza has been getting to work with Brian Greasy to install Clint Kubiak's offense. And Jeremiah added that Mendoza is full speed ahead on making sure he's up to speed when he's eventually drafted by the Raiders. I'm sure some of this is just Mendoza geeking out on being a pro. But I think some of it is probably this nonsense that, oh, yeah, maybe they go get Kirk Cousins to start and Mendoza will come in when he's ready, which I think is total nonsense. Well, but I like Mendoza. He's ready to go. This is not some young kid who's inexperienced. 3-year college starter. Let's go. Get him under center week 1.
Yeah, I mean, this is why I think he is. I think a lot of times we pay so much attention to the physical part of quarterback play. But I'll give an example. Aaron Rodgers no longer runs. Aaron Rodgers isn't that committed in the offseason. But Aaron Rodgers, just on intellect and situational excellence, goes to the Steelers, and they went from an awful red zone offense to one of the top 5 or 6 in the league. How? They didn't have a top 5 O-line. They didn't have a top 5 receiving core. So much of this sport is above the shoulders. And yes, it's great to have, a big arm and be able to move. But Lamar Jackson's not winning playoff games. I'm not blaming anybody, but if you start looking at what works in this league, it's great offensive coaching. It's total commitment. It is, it's just doing stuff off the field. And I mean, again, Drake May's got great physical tools. Mahomes has great physical tools. But even a Mahomes, if you give him no run game and a bad offensive line, can get walloped. So when I look...
Yeah. That's why I made my video yesterday where J-Mac was like Kirk Cousins. And he was like bad-mouthing it and I was like, yeah, Kirk Cousins, that's it. There's a huge benefit to that. Listen, I think of Joe Burrow, and again, Joe Burrow, he got injured his rookie year. I'm almost positive. It was his second year that he then I think it was the second season that he then went to the Super Bowl. I think that's how it unfolded. But regardless, like Joe Burrow, his superpower is being like a truly elite passer. Like his ability to throw the ball is just so incredibly special. It's through the roof. It's his ultimate superpower, and that's always going to translate into the end of there is no translation needed, and especially if you're going to give him T. Higgins and Jamar Ch, there's going to be production there. There's going an immediate production. That's not necessarily the situation with a Fernando Mendoza. So yeah, if you were saying who will be able to hit the ground running, if you look at a prospect like a Joe Burrow and a prospect like Mendoza, you could make the argument for one or the other honestly, because you could be like, well, he's a little bit more, physical, a little bit more athletic and blah blah, and it's just like sure, but to me, as long as you have the right pieces around a Joe Burrow, it's not going to take long for him to show just how special he can be. Whereas I think there's more of a runway for development with a Fernando Mendoza. And again, that's not a bad thing. There's absolutely positively nothing wrong with that whatsoever. So, that's why I kept saying, and when I made my video yesterday, patience. It's okay. There's no reason to feel like this needs to be like an immediate explosion, right? That is the problem. And I sense this because think about it. I've obviously been making a ton of Las Vegas Raiders videos. You guys all know that. And obviously it's so centered around Mendoza. And it makes sense because he's the quarterback and he's the one that's going to be the difference maker between is this franchise finally turning the corner or not, right? It really will ultimately come down to Mendoza's shoulders ultimately, and also how great can this franchise, if Mendoza is legitimately an elite special quarterback and all-time talent, then literally the next 10 plus years for the Raiders everything completely changes, right? Everything, you're potentially building a dynasty, you're winning multiple Super Bowls, you're an elite top franchise in the NFL for the next decade, everything changes. If he is just a good quarterback, right? No, he's pretty good. Yeah. No. I think the Raiders are happy. You know, he's a good quarterback and it just stays that it's still a win, LL a positive, but it's not winning Super Bowl after Super Bowl after Super Bowl, right? It's not winning the division 3 years in a row and all that type of stuff. There's just so the spectrum is so vast and massive. Like, what's at stake could not be any higher. And because all of that is at stake for any team that's trying to get a quarterback, but obviously the Raiders in this situation, it gets extra magnified in terms of what should the conversation be going into this season. What should the actual expectations be? It's how you have a take like Nick had, I guess a couple years ago at this point now, of Caleb Williams. It's going to be easy for him. I remember he said the NFL is going to be easy for Caleb Williams, that it was harder in college because of the talent. Now it's going to be easy and he's going to be a Super Bowl. They're going to be in the Super Bowl and he's going to be an MVP candidate. And quite frankly, the only reason why he said that he wasn't going to win the MVP is because he thought Patrick Mahomes was going to win the MVP, right? But if there was no Mahomes in that regard, then he would have said that Caleb Williams would. Honestly, the only reason why he thought that they weren't even going to win the Super Bowl was because of the Kansas City Chiefs, right? So, if you just knew if it was a little bit reverse, if Mahomes got injured and they're like, oh, Mahomes and the Chiefs aren't going to be play. Well this year, Mahomes is not going to come back until week 10 or whatever. Nick's take would have been Caleb Williams is going to win the MVP and the Super Bowl as a rookie because the expectations, because of the impact of a quarterback and the importance and how much it truly can define a franchise. It's like that's how we get those takes. That's how we get those takes. And I get the excitement. I get the momentum. I get it. I really, really do. And again, I haven't shied away from talking about Mendoza and the Raiders any chance I can because again, I'm coming across this clip and I'm like, am I going to make another Raiders video? And I'm like, yeah, I'm going to make another Raiders video because it makes sense because what's at stake is so massive, It matters so much. It's franchisee defining of this era, right? Of this version of the Raiders, it's franchisee defining. And then when you look at the different categories, is he truly a special quarterback? Is he just a good quarterback? Is he a bust? If we just look at those 3 categories, just that alone, so much is at stake. So much is at stake. So then we immediate Joe Burrow did this and like Patrick Mahomes and Caleb Williams this that and that's why it's just like so just be smart. Take your time. Be patient. Do your due diligence. Don't rush anything. Just be smart. Just be smart. It's all OT to do. Just be smart. Don't rush anything. Just be smart. And don't put expectations that need not be there. Allow someone like a Mendoza to develop. Allow him to grow. Allow him to fail. He is going to fail spectacularly at times. And that needs to be okay. That needs to be okay. And I do continue to think that the Raiders are doing everything correctly here. So, I have no doubt, and I've emphasized that more and more now, to be as clear as I possibly can, but it's not like I'm expecting, essentially year 2 Joe Burrow. I think I'm correct with that. Yeah, because in 2020, 65% completion percentage, 2,600 yards, 13 touchdowns, 5 interceptions, 89.8 pass rating. Not terrible. Certainly not terrible. And then in 2021, 70% completion percentage, 4,600 yards, 34 touchdowns, 14 interceptions, and a 108.3 passer rating. I feel as though people are trying to pretty much say Mendoza should be year 2 Joe Burrow in year 1. If you're bringing up Joe Burrow and talking about that transition, that's in essence what you're saying. No one really focuses on Joe Burrow's rookie year. He was the 18th ranked quarterback. Again, definitely not bad. 10 games, 2,600 yard, again, that's always tough. 6.7 yards per attempt. So, definitely on the lower end, 13 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. It's a decent touchdown-interception ratio. Again, this is all on a rookie scale. Obviously, you'll take all of this right now. Obviously, and I don't even think didn't Jamar Chase get drafted in 21? Yeah. Then you add a Jamar Chase who's getting 81 catches for 400 yards and 13 touchdowns. Okay. You know, like that's a big addition right there. That's a big addition. So, I get the comp, you know, I get it. But, you know, I think we get too hyper-focused with some of these timelines and what someone else did. And you always see that because this has happened with like Mahomes as of late because the last few years haven't been great for him. And so then Nick has kind of switched things up to be like, well, Mahomes had like the best start. And you know, and it's like in his second year he had made an AFC championship game and MV, and it's just like, you know, like it's always funny. And then Colin has now switched it up when he was comparing Stafford to Aaron, and well, the last 5 years Stafford has been, you know, the end of Stafford's career is better than the end of Aaron's career. And it's just like, you know, when you have to start to play that game when you're looking at like the end of a career and the beginning of a career, and you're trying, you know, who had a better first 5 years in the NFL. Well, who had actually the best last 3 years of their career. I'm like, I don't know. Like, what the heck was the situation for both of them? Like, what do we even, when is that, what has that been a thing, right? You know, unless you start your career and win 3 straight Super Bowls, then sure. Okay. Or you're a rookie quarterback and you win a Super Bowl and a Super Bowl MVP and you're that dude. And it's like, yeah, dude, you from week 1 as a rookie, you were balling. Okay, fine. That's a separate conversation to be had, but like that's not the conversations that we're having. So, I just think when we kind of start to play this game, it just leaves the door wide open to get messier than it needs to be. And then I think, for me at least, I think we start to have a conversation that feels further from the truth and further from what we should be discussing. You know, and when you're going to bring a graphic up like this, honestly, my automatic thoughts are like, why? What purpose are we trying to serve? Because Joe Burrow, this is college 2019, 78.3% completion percentage, 4,300 yards, 10.9 yards per attempt, 44 touchdowns, 6 interceptions, and a 94.22 PFF offensive rating and a passer rating of 142.3. I mean, he only had 9 turnover-worthy plays and he threw for 4,300 yards on 401 pass attempts, 44 touchdowns. I mean, like, that's so insane. He had 27 big-time throws. I mean, that's just so his turnover-worthy percentage was 1.9%. Less than 2% he put the ball in harm's way. And that's absolute insanity. That is completely different than what Fernando Mendoza did. 71.3% completion percentage, 2,700 yards, 9.3 yards per attempt, 32 touchdowns, 5 interceptions, 9 turnover-worthy plays, 19 big-time throws, passer rating of 129.3. Again, obviously, you know, I think Mendoza is great. It's just the skill set of Burrow. It just translates effort. It's just effortless. It's just effortless translation. And again, he had a great college team, so you can start to compare. And that's what I'm trying to emphasize. Like you start to play that game like, well, he had this in college and he had that in college. Well, he's got D. And it's just like exactly. We start having a conversation that like we not need to have. So, I use references of, you know, other quarterbacks and whatnot as more of like an indicator of what's possible. Like how I talked about Jaden Daniels' rookie year and how all the things that needed to go right, like he played unbelievable and had arguably the best rookie season of all time for a quarterback, and yet so many things needed to go right for him to accomplish that, right? And using CJ Stroud and Justin Herb, I like to use more recent examples as to show what's possible. And again, to me, it's just like here's just a reminder of what can happen. Like here's and also let's talk about how it actually unfolded, right? Like the Jane Daniels season, obviously that being the most recent one, and so yeah, but not as in terms of expectations or what's needed to happen or what should happen or well Jaden did it or CJ did therefore, and it's just like that's the wrong conversation, that's completely the wrong conversation. So but yeah, I guess they're getting a little bit more creative of how to have the Fernando Mendoza to the Las Vegas Raiders conversation unfolding. Now it's got to be the Joe Burrow comp. But those are just my thoughts. I'd absolutely love to hear yours. What do you guys all think about Fernando Mendoza and the Las Vegas Raiders? How you feeling about all of it right now? Let me know your thoughts. I read every single comment. So whether you agree with me or disagree with me, either way, let's get into some discussions. Let's get some fights, but ultimately, let's just have some fun. And please do consider subscribing. We're building an amazing community here, and I absolutely love to see you part of it. I want to build stuff that we all generally feel connected to, something that we're really excited to be part of. I think we're well on our way to doing it. Please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up. It really does help visibility and the algorithm. Thank you so much. See you next time.